American ambassador guy and there's a Russian ambassador guy and they're having a conversation. And I do wish that there was a little bit more time for some intimacy with the characters we do. Like, I might have liked for that sonar guy to just be a bit more involved in the actual mission, because I was like, hey, they gave him enough detail. I know who he is. I would care about him if he were to like get into some sort of danger or something. And I feel like that's maybe one of the things that kind of like lacks throughout the movie, even though it doesn't say, not to say it's not there. I think that the Sam Neill character is a perfect example of doing it well, and I wish there was kind of more stuff with him, because that scene where he gets really intimate with Connery, I think Connery is fantastic in that scene. And it's obviously very like funny moment, because Sam Neill is describing kind of his post-defection dream of like, you know, we're going to be in so much trouble, we can't go back to Russia, so we're going to go live in the States. We're defecting to the States. And he's imagining his like cold, boring, you know, Russian communist lifestyle. And he's being like, man, imagine living in Montana and having an American wife and being able to drive a recreational vehicle and just like driving between states without papers. It's actually so comedically like,
he's like, I want a pickup truck. I that was so funny.
He might, like, Sam Neill might as well just break out into like a country song or something like that, the way that he's talking of like America. But I will say, on the opposite side, Connery, the way that he talks about how he just is like, I've been in a state of tense, like wartime, get ready to blow someone else up for decades. And it's taken a toll on my body and my mind. And my wife died while I was like fucking wasting all of my life on this fucking boat. And I just wish that I could be a boy again and go fishing and think of the water as something beautiful. And there's a line that he has that's like, I widowed my wife the day I married her. And and the way that Connery delivers that, there's just a little bit of like regret to it. Like, that feels like he's.
Is that near the end when he's talking to Jack Ryan by any chance? I'm trying to remember.
He brings up the fishing thing again with Jack Ryan as a reference to this scene, but no, this specific scene is when what he says in return to Sam Neill talking about how he wants to be in Montana. It's when they have a moment on the ship to just like talk to each other rather than the mission.
Okay, I was gonna say it's almost like I thought first because they repeat that other part with the river. I thought it might have been Baldwin, because it would almost like parallel what he's going through too. They don't mention his wife, but he has a daughter, so you have to assume that he has a wife. And it kind of has that tone of like, once you take on this work, you know, you've already widowed your family. You know, like that you are, even if you're not dead, you're gone. You know, you're at risk of death all the time. You're gone for months, if not years on end. It's just, like you might as well be a ghost kind of thing.
They are definitely making a comparison between the two, because at the very end, when they do bond, it is literally they're looking at like above water and they're looking at like a little island, and like it is like more, you know, calm and kind of beautiful. And I think it's Jack Ryan says that he used to go there like fishing with his dad or something like that. And then Connery realizes that here's this American on the other side of the world who also thinks of like childhood fishing as something that, you know, to aspire to, something that would bring peace to me rather than constantly being in this like intense wartime anxiety all the time.
Yeah, and I guess that's probably the three. I would say most likely the three characters you really get to know. It's like it's Baldwin, Connery, and Neil. Curry gets a couple moments that I really like, because he ends up trying to like fight with Connery a lot of the time with the decisions that he's making.
Yeah, and Scott Glenn gets a little bit of good back and forth with Baldwin when they have that section of the movie where they are kind of having to work together to try and board Connery's ship, because Glenn is like the only one. Glenn's kind of like the toned down version of what Gene Hackman's playing in Crimson Tide, because he's a little bit like, no, I'm following my orders, and my orders are to shoot that ship down. And he just actually listens to Baldwin's pleading a little bit more, because he's like, he's kind of nice nerd, you know. He kind of he seems like he's being honest and earnest.
And again, I feel like even like Scott Glenn, the commander, it seems like he still gets like a good decent amount of personality that shines through. And like you got to think all these factions. It's like Jack Ryan is kind of a lone like entity, which because he's kind of working with everybody in a sense. So you can kind of hyper focus on him, but then you have the American crew, which has like 5 different characters, the Russian crew that isn't the Red October, because there is also eventually another sub that comes in.
Yeah, Stellan Skarsgård is running that one, right?
So I have to admit, like when I was, and this could be because I was also doing notes at the same time, but every once in a while I'd look up and I'd see Skarsgård, and before I knew the context, I was like, okay, so we're back at the Red October because these are Russians. So it took, like, eventually, obviously I figured it out and everything, but I just mean it has this, you know, fast paced quality to it, even for being 2 hours and 15 minutes or whatever it is. And there's just so much that you're balancing in that regard. And I almost, like, we haven't even talked about that extra Russian ship yet. You know what I mean? Then you still have the Red October.
There's kind of a lot going
on.
The
CIA and, you know, like, it is wild. And then eventually they even start to do these smaller sequences where Connery needs to get like his entire crew out of the ship so he can still fulfill what he wants to do with his mission. And then they will like cut back to them cheering on certain subs that are being like raised up or destroyed or whatever. And they're even kind of confused on what they're looking at and who they're like what they're cheering for, in a sense, because everything is, again, underground. They can't see anything. That's something too that I love about the submarine design, is that it's built so that there are no windows. Everything is just on radar. So every single threat is demolished or defended.
It's a little blip on a screen.
Math. Yeah, and you just have to do math. You have to hope that your timing and your multiplication is correct. And it's just like, it's
some of those sequences in this, I think.